If I'm going like -5, I said there's what is the answer in another thing? The answer is not clear. Only for that number. Okay. What are we going to do? Right. Right. Last week copy bacteria. Oh. Right. Right. Yeah. Well, virus tapi bacteria so we are coming to fungi today. That is also coming under the parasite story which we are talking about. This is also not a difficult thing, it's easy, right? Well, Well, this subject, like this is coming under the category of microbiology, right? We talked about virology, that's about viruses. We talked about bacteriology, that is about bacteria. Then we talk about mycology, that is about the scientific study of fungi, right? Fungi, right? We know about, like, what are the fungi that you know in your day-to-day life? දන්න එකක් කියන්න. Yeast හරි. ඊටත් වඩා ටිකක් familiar එකක්. අනේ ගන්න තියෙන අපි ගන්න බොන්න. Mushroom, right? Fungi. හරිද? Right. So here we will be more focusing on the diseases side. Well, so we'll be talking about fungal characteristics. We know viruses, they have separate set of characteristics. Bacteria, they have another separate set of characteristics. Then when it comes to fungi, there's another set of characteristics. And also, bacteria, viruses, fungi, they are different from the genetic characteristics also. Genetic properties, biochemical properties, right? They are going to be different from each other. Well, we know, speaking of genetic biochemical properties in the sense, in terms of DNA, RNA, right? So whether they have DNA only or RNA only, or DNA and RNA both, and whether there's an organized capsule, basically nucleus, right? Like, so that is about genetic properties. In other words, biochemical properties. Well, economically, how important they are, economically and ecologically, right? Economical aspects in the sense, like if we talk about the mushroom industry, and economically important, right? They can be grow right? ඊට පස්සේ අපිට ඒක තියාගන්න පුළුවන් කාලයක් වෙනකොට preservatives මොනවාද? plus ඊට පස්සේ growth medium එක මොකක්ද? ඊට පස්සේ මේක මාකට් එකට මොන කන්ඩිෂන් එක යටතේ තියන්න ඕනේද සහ ඊට පස්සේ මාකට් එකේ කොහොමද? right? අන්න economical aspect එකක් වෙනම තියෙනවා ඒක ඇතුළේ. Medical significance, right? Medical significance, of course, like, so let's say that, okay, we have some fungal infection, right? So fungal infection එකක් තියෙනවා අන්න medical significance එකක් එතන තියෙනවා. එතකොට fungal infection එකකදී තියෙන medical significances ගත්තට පස්සේ එකක් තමයි, right? We are getting infected, so then our body will be in some danger. Then accordingly, we have to use some like antifungal medicines. That is medical significance of that, right? එතකොට මෙන්න මේ area එක අපි cover කරන මේ area එක තමයි අපි basically mycology කියලා කියන්නේ in brief ලොකු area එකක්. අපි එකෙන් extract කරගත්ත area එකක් කතා කරන්නේ වෙන්නේ. Right. So, well, we know when it comes to organisms, we talked about there are two, prokaryotic and eukaryotic, right? Prokaryotic, they don't have a specific organized cell structure, but when it comes to fungi, it is not like that, right? That is eukaryotic organism, right? Speaking of the cell structure, the fungal cell, it is covered with a cell wall. The cell wall is going to be different from place to place. We'll talk about cell wall separately. The major component in cell wall is chitin, right? Chitin cell wall. Chitin කියන compound එක ගත්තට පස්සේ chitin. අපි example එකක් ගත්තොත් එහෙම, right? chitin කියන මොන වගේ substance එකක්ද කියලා chitin කියන වතුරේ දිය වෙන එකක් නෙමෙයි. හරිද? chitin වතුරේ දිය වෙන එකක් නෙමෙයි. ඒක දිය වෙන්නේ hydrocarbons. අපි example එකක් විදිහට ගත්තොත් එහෙම right, okay. අපි guarantee ලවන්න පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ මොකක්ද? භූමිකය. right. right? එතකොට guarantee එකේ හැමයි guarantee කරන්නේ all the states like that sacrifice එකේ scheme එකේ තියෝ height. එතකොට ඒක දිය වෙනවා භූමි තෙලට. ඒ නිසා අපි guarantee ආවට පස්සේ භූමි තෙල ගන්න. right? එතකොට scheme එක දිය වුණාට පස්සේ අන්න guarantee එක හම්බුනේ. right? එතකොට ඒක ස්කින් එක දී වුණාට පස්සේ ඌ මැරෙනවා. ඒක මැරෙන්නේ භූමිකාව ගන්න හරිනේ. මොකද ස්කින් එක ගියාට පස්සේ හිතන්නකෝ දැන් එක්සැම්පල් එකක් දෙන්න දැන් අපි ඉන්නවා. just picture yourself like without the skin අන්න ඒ වගේ සිටුේෂන් එකක් තමයි ගැරන්ටි එක වෙන්නේ. අපි භූමි තලයට පස්සේ ස්කින් එක දිය වෙනවා. right? ඊට පස්සේ exposed to the entire external environment භූමිකාව කරලා ඌ මැරෙනවා. හරිද? ඒක නිසා මේ භූමි තෙල් ගන්න වෙන්නේ කොච්චර දුරට ethical ද කියන එකේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. මේ මොකද අනිවාර්යෙන් මැරෙන හින්දා අපි තේරෝ ගන්න මේක ඔප්ෂන් එකක් නැති වුණාට පස්සේ වෙන කරන්න දෙයක් පැහැදිලි වෙනවා තියෙනවා. පොඩක් එහෙම පැත්තක් තියෙනවා. right anyway right then heterotrophic nutrition ඒක අපි ගත්තාට පස්සේ දැන් fungal cells වල පෝෂණය පැත්ත ගැන කතා කරමු. right we know when it comes to nutritional side there are two methods. One is like they do photosynthesis. Right? Photosynthesis called carbon dioxide fixation under carbon dioxide and water that is going to be converted into glucose, then sucrose, like that. That is actually photosynthesis, but this is not photosynthesis. This is heterotrophic nutrition. Heterotrophic nutrition, in that case, what is happening? They depend on some other source, right? දැන් අපි වගේ right අපි කඩින් කාලා ජීවත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් නැත්නම් අපි ෆෝටෝ එළියට ගිහිල්ලා අපි අවුල්ටන් ඉඳලා මේ ෆෝටෝසින්තසිස් කරලා කැම හදාගන්න නෑ නේ. ඒක ඇතුලේ right අපි heterotrophic right එළියෙන් කැම ගන්නනේ. ඒ සිස්ටම් එක තමයි යන්නේ fungal cells වලට right. That is going to be heterotrophic nutrition, right? And how do they generate? How do they multiply? Right. So they reproduce via spores. They make spores. Spores can have seeds, right? Spores, right? Flowers, right? Spores. The spores, like they move everywhere. Abhi gatto te mushroom industry ke, right? Mushrooms. And they know it was taking spores. And they know his spores තමයි හැමතැනම ව්‍යාප්ත වෙන්නේ. අන්න ඒක එක spores වලින් එක plant එක ගානේ grow වෙනවා. Right? Spores. And also, speaking of the cellular structure, fungi, they can be unicellular. Like a cell like a fungi, and they can be multicellular also. Right? When they are unicellular, right? When they are unicellular, okay, single cells are there. Multicellular group right? Organized group. Right. Speaking of chlorophyll side, since they depend on heterotrophic nutrition, they don't go for chlorophyll. So then there's lack of chlorophyll in them. Right? Chlorophyll අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ photosynthesis කරනවා නම් ඒගොල්ලෝ photosynthesis කරන්නේ නැහැ. Right. Right. Now we'll come to the structure of the fungal cells. Right. Fungal cell. Right. This is a rigid structure. So they have a rigid cell wall. Right? They have a rigid cell wall. Fungal cells, then අපි mushrooms ගත්තොත් එහෙම නැත්නම් ගහක පොත්තක හැදලා තියෙන fungus අපි ගත්තොත් ඒක හයියයිනේ. Right? Soft නෑ high. Right? So right there the cell wall is going to be like that. They have a rigid cell wall. Cell wall is rigid. This rigid cell wall, the advantages that they have because of the presence of the rigid cell wall, right? It's going to be cell wall is protecting the cell, and it is keeping the cell hydrated. නැත්නම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඇතුලේ තියෙන වතුර wash වෙලා make it dehydrated, right? So then it is like protecting from being dehydrated. And also, since the cell wall is rigid and thick and rigid, because of that, it can tolerate the external forces, vibrations, right? අපි ගැහුවොත් ඒ vibration එක tolerate කරන cell එක ශක්ව වෙලා කුඩු වෙලා යන තියෙන ඉඩ කඩ අඩුයි. මොකද මේ cell එක තව වෙලා තියෙන rigid cell wall එකකින් තව වෙලා තියෙනවා. right. ඔය cell wall එක තමයි අපිට එළියෙන්ම දකින්න තියෙන්නේ. right. ඊට ඇතුලේ we have the cell membrane, right? Cell membrane, of course, that is inside the cell wall. Cell wall. Right. Cell wall cell membrane. Right? Cell membrane, of course, it's a normal cell membrane. Normal what do I mean? Like there are no any abnormal cell membranes, but what I'm saying is like, when it comes to cell membrane, right, bacteria, viruses, so they all have some kind of membrane. That membrane is going to be different from species to species. That's a different story. But the entire protection now, in this case, when it comes to fungi, the entire protection side is being handled by that thick cell wall, right? එකට cell wall එක තියෙනවා මේ protection පැත්ත බලා ගන්න. ඒක නිසා cell membrane එකේ protection function එකක් නැහැ. right? So it acts as a cell membrane. The protection දැන් අපිට හිතන්න දැන් අපිට දෙතන මොකක් හරි දැන් අපිට මොකක් හරි threat එකක් තියෙනවා නම් අපි ආරක්ෂාවට එලි set එකක් වෙනම බහලා ඉන්නවා නම් හිතන්න අපි defenders ටිකක් එහෙම ගෙනල්ලා team එකක් බස්සලා ඉන්නවා කියලා මොකක් හරි අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙලා આવුත් right? එතකොට එහෙම දෙට්ටක් බස්සලා නම් ඉන්න අපිට මෙතන මේ කර්ටන් අරගෙන බලලා ඉන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. මොකද ඒ මොකක් හරි එළිය වුණත් නම් ඒගොල්ලෝ බලා ගන්න. ඒකට වෙනම setup එක හදලා තියෙනවා. right? එතකොට මෙතන එහෙම අර එළිය set බස්සලා තියෙන defenders ඒවම set එක තමයි මේ cell wall එක. ඒ නිසා cell membrane එකට එහෙම function එකක් protection පැත්තක් බලන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. Cell membrane is doing the normal cell membrane functions. Right? Which is common for any kind of cell. Right. After the cell membrane, we have cytoplasm, right? Cell wall, rigid and thick, then cell membrane, and the cell membrane actually we have the cytoplasm. You know, when it comes to cytoplasm, the composition of the cytoplasm is going to be different from one cell to another cell, right? Even within the same species, we'll say human, right? We have cells in the muscles, we have cells in the heart, liver, everywhere we have cells. The composition of the cytoplasm is a thick liquid which is inside the cell membrane. The composition of this cytoplasm changes from one cell to another cell depending on the location of the same species, same animal or same plant. When it comes to here, this situation also, we have a cytoplasm. That cytoplasm is going to be different in compositions from one fungal species to another fungal species. Right? Now let's talk about like cytoplasm, right? It's a thick liquid. Thick liquid හරියට අපි ගත්තොත් මේ හිතන්න thick කියන්නේ දැන් අපි coconut oil වගේ liquid එකක්. right? ඒ වගේ liquid එකක් ගත්තට පස්සේ අන්න එහෙමයි. දැන් අපි ගත්තොත් වතුරයි coconut oil ගත්තට පස්සේ වතුර කියන්නේ එකක් normal නම තියෙන එකක්. coconut oil ඔයිට වඩා thickness එක වැඩි අර ගලාගෙන යන ස්වභාවය එකක්. අඩු අන්න එහෙම එකක් තමයි cytoplasm එක කියලා කියන්නේ. Inside that cytoplasm we have components. One of the major components present in the cytoplasm is nucleus. අපේ බැක්ටීරියා වලට එද්දී අපිට එහෙම සමහර අවස්ථා තිබ්බා මේ අර ඕගනයිස්ඩ් නියුක්ලියස් එකක් එතන නැහැ. වෛරස් වලදී නම් එහෙම එකක් තිබ්බෙම නැහැ. නේද? Right. So when it comes to fungi, it has a nucleus. It has a nucleus. The nucleus only contains this the relevant genetic materials, DNA, RNA, or both, right? Maybe. depending on situation. Right. That is about the nucleus. Well, in the cytoplasm, another part which is present is mitochondria. We have met mitochondria before also under biochemistry. We were talking about mitochondria and cellular respiration, right? What kind of a role, if you can remember, tell me, what kind of a role that, as you remember, that mitochondria plays in a cell? Mother, what? Energy, yes, energy. The ATP production, right? In the cell, the energy production is being handled by mitochondria. Not the entire process, but some part, some major role is being done by. It's like the reason for that is therefore that not to be a smooth one. Always when it comes to cellular structure, it is in the absorbing process. When it is, especially when it comes to the nutritional side, right? So they should absorb things from outside. Then the technique to increase the absorption capacity is to increase the surface area of the server, right? Then, if the surface is like so smooth like this is only the surface that we can see. So then the absorption part will be done from this area which we can see. And then make a smooth එකක් නෙමෙයි නම් රැලි නම් තියෙන්නේ මේ size එකටම අර රැලි ටිකක් එකතු කරලා ගත්තම සිලොක් surface area එකක් තියෙනවා නේද? Right? Then by increasing the surface, the strategy of increasing the surface area is to increase the absorption capacity of the nutrients. That is important. Right? දැන් අපේ brain එක ගත්තාම හරිද high brain capacity එකක් තියෙන අර brain එක හරි ලස්සනට smooth මල්වල පස්සේ අර ලස්සනට අපේ ගෑවෙන ඉමිටන්නේ brain එක. Right? Human brain capacity එක කොච්චරද? මතකද? Any idea? 33 terabytes. හරිද? ඒ තමයි human brain capacity එක. ඒක හිතලා බලන්න ඕකෙන් 33 terabyte වලින් අපි කොච්චර චුට්ටක්ද use කරන්නේ කියලා. හරිද? දැන් අපි entire biochemistry ගමු පොඩි MB ගන්න. හරි එකක් මතකද? හරි අපි microbiology ගමු පොඩි MB ගන්න. ඒතකොට මේ අපි මේ studies ගත්තම මේක GB එකක්වත් නෑ. මේකවත් අපිට තිබුණා ඒක තමයි. right? GB එකකටත් වඩා හුඟක් අඩු දැන් GB එකක් කරනවා නම් එතෙන්ට ඕනේ අර කොච්චරද 1033ද MB ඕනේ 33 1000 කියමු එතන 1000 MB තමයි GB එකක් මොකද GB නේ මෙතන තියෙන TB 33 TB තියෙනවා අපේ capacity හරි එතකොට මේක අපි use කරන්නේ නැතුණා මම මෙතන මම අපු දැන් මේ surface area කියන කැලේ මම හිටියේ එතකොට surface area ගත්තට පස්සේ brain එකේ surface area මෙහෙම අර රැලි කරලා එහෙම වුණාට පස්සේ එහෙම තමයි අර surface area වැඩි කරලා තමයි අර 33 terabyte capacity එකක් අපිට තියෙන්නේ. right? එතකොට අන්නේ absorption ඒ වගේ capacity වැඩි කරන්න organs වල, cells වල, membranes වල absorption capacity වැඩි කරන්න තමයි smooth surface එකක් වෙනුවට රැලි surface එකක් තියෙන්නේ. right? එහෙමයි වෙන්නේ. ඉතලා බලන්න right okay brain capacity එක අපේ 33 TB නම් තව ඉතුරු ටිකේ මොනවා ඇද්ද කියලා පොඩ්ඩක් නිකන් මෙතනම කල්පනා කරලා බලන්න ඒකින් වැඩක් ගන්න පුළුවන් right දැන් කියන්න බෑ ඒක නෑ ඒ වැඩිපුර දෙන්නේ මම කරලා ඉන්නේ ඒක වැඩක් කරන්න බැරිලා ඉන්නේ. හරි. Right. Another one which is present inside the cell structure is Golgi apparatus. Golgi apparatus. We'll be talking about the functions as well, right? So we are talking about the parts of the things which are present inside the cytoplasm, basically inside the cell membrane. One of those is Golgi apparatus. Right. Well, so speaking of the classification of fungi, right? We classify the fungi according to their shape, according to their nutritional pattern, right? And according to their economical benefits, right? So then this is set fungi, Ascomycota, right? Then fungi ගත්තට පස්සේ මේ ඔක්කොම මේ අපිට එළියට පේන්නේ එක වගේ fungi. Pus නේද? right. එළියට පේන්නේ ඔක්කොම එක වගේ. ඒ වගේ classification වලට යද්දී අපිට detail classification එකට යන්න වෙනවා. අපිට එළියෙන් පේන විදිහ ඔක්කොම එකයි. right. set fungi කියන්නේ මෙන්න මේ වගේ එකක්. Ascomycota, right? First let's familiar with the terms and the shapes, right? Ascomycota, that is set fungi. Basidiomycota, club fungi. So අර කලින් එකේ මේකේ මහ ලොකු වෙනසක් පේන්නේ නැහැ. එක වගේ. හැබැයි වෙනස් නැත්තේ නැහැ. right? මේ බලන්න මේකේ තියෙන විදිය. right? sac fungi. ඒකේ shape එකයි. right? club fungi. ඒකේ වෙනසක් තියෙනවා. මොකද අරකේ තියෙන ඊට වඩා මේක ටිකක් දැන් මේ කලින් එක ඒකට වඩා මේක ටිකක් අර පිරුණු ස්වභාවය වැඩි. නේද? right. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ ජිම් යන්න කලින් මේ ජිම් ගියාට පස්සේ වගේ අවස්ථාව. හරිද? හා. Another one. Zygomycota. If we talk about the individual shape, right, that is going to be similar to almost similar to the previous two shapes that we were talking about. But when it comes to this, like you see, it's different. The difference here is this is coming as like this is being developed as a cluster like this, right? Previous one is different. You see? Right. So in this case, this individual one survives. Here also, like they exist like this. But Zygomycota that exists as a cluster. අර වගේ ලොකු කොලනි එකක් තියෙනවා. right? Look at this one. Cytidromycota. In that case, it has a rigid little bit rigid structure than the two previous ones. The previous ones, like they are, like this is not, this one is not soft like the first one, right? It's a bit more rigid, and this is structure-wise, it is soft. But this one, right? It's bit rigid structure. You might have seen these kind of things, like in some at some isolated places, right? අර දැන් ඔය හිතන්න මේ වගේ අර දැන් අපි මොකක් හරි පොල් කොම්බයක් වගේ එකක් විසිකලා තිබ්බට පස්සේ එතන තෙත තියෙනවා නම් ඒක ඇතුලේ right මෙහෙම හැදෙනවා දැකලා තියෙනවත් වෙන්න ඇති right මේක මේ කන જાතියක් නෙමෙයි right අර ගසුත් එක්ක හැදෙන්නේ right Deuteromycota imperfect fungi. Right. Why do we call it imperfect fungi? Because it is not perfect. Not exactly, but when it comes to fungi, right, there are certain characteristics, certain distinct characteristics for fungi, right? And there are stuff which are coming under the kingdom of fungi, but the thing is like, that is not going to be like 100% matching with the general characteristics, but still, from outlook, that is going to be a fungi, right? So we call them imperfect fungi. Right. Let's talk about their generation. Like, how does it reproduce? When it comes to the reproduction side, they reproduce in two ways: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is like it's just multiplying. It's multiplication, how it is happening. Right? Now, well, this is the mature plant. I have taken the example of mushroom here. Right? Right. So then spores are there. These spores are like spores. Right. So the what is happening? Spores. Right. And each spore separately is growing into a new mushroom. Right. Now here you see, right? Spores are there. 3 of them. Right. So they are growing. Like step 1, like spores are emitted to the environment. Then these spores, they should go to a particular place. That's random actually. Right? We don't know where it is going. Randomly, that is falling into some place. If the place is available with whatever the requirements, right? Basically, water. Then what is happening? Spore germination is happening. Right. Then it is growing into mycelium. මේ mycelium කියන්නේ network එකකට දැලක් වගේ තියෙන එකක්. මේක අපිට බැලුවොත් ඕනෑම බැලුවොත් පේනවා. අර mushroom එකක් දාන්න grow webs එකක් අර මෙහෙම ගස් වගේ තියෙන එකක් නෙමෙයි. මේක grow වෙලා යන එකක්. right සුදු පාටට. අර නැත්නම් යාදාල ඒ පාට තියෙන එකක් ඒක මෙහෙම දැලක් වගේ තියෙන එකක්. right mycelium. Then mycelium only is developing into initial stage of the mushroom. We call them fruit body. And after that, it is growing into mature mushroom. Right? This is how it is happening. Okay. Asexual reproduction. Right. Now, in asexual reproduction, okay, spores were released. The spores were just growing, right? And it grew into another new mushroom. But when it comes to sexual reproduction, that is going to be big different, right? Well, so in that case, we have two types of, right? So suppose the same type of, like similar type of situation, but the thing is, when it comes to spores, right? Spores are raised. From those spores, like, in the previous case, it grew something called mycelium, mycelium dalapageka, right? In that case, a dalapageka, right? So hypha, right? There are positive ones and there are negative ones, plus and minus, right? Plus minus, right? Then we call that before this post level, we call it diploid 2N and haploid 1N because like, so then 2N, we have the entire genetic material. So that's divided by 2. Then we have the 1N situation, right? That is why we get two types of structures. We get two types of structures. One is positive one plus hyphae and the other one is minus hyphae. Right. Okay. Then combination of positive hyphae and negative hyphae. So both combination of both of them can be seen. We call them plasmogam. That is that stage. Right. Then finally, after completing this half of the cycle, right, then it combines to form, right, plus and minus, both of them combine together, right. Finally, it makes something called zygote. It's a combination of positive and negative hyphae. Right. Then that zygote only is forming into, it is going to be forming into the new mycelium that will develop the fruit. Right. This is, you see, it's a bit different from asexual reproduction. It's a bit different from just growing the new one starting from the what is this mycelium, right? Here also we have spores, but the procedure is a bit different. What is the difference that you can see? In the asexual one, it's just okay. The spore is going to be released to the particular environment. It is just growing into the new plant. But now it's different. We have two types, plus version and the minus version. Well, have a look at this chart. With this, we can compare the difference between asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Maybe now he's reading about the germination and stuff, right? අපි බැරි නම් අපේ ක්ලාස් එකට ගියා මේ ෂෙයා එකක් බාස් ටූල් එකක් ගේන්නනේ අර උට අර මේවා කැලේ නැති අර අපල දෙක තියාගන්න කැලේ දෙකද අර මොයිස් වල කට්ටිය අර බාර් එකේ ඉස්සරහ කවුන්ටරේ අන්නේ දාදී chairs. The place is too comfortable for you. That's a problem. He should be given a stool without a chair like this. Alright, if we come back to the story. Asexual reproduction, හරිද මොකද වෙන්නේ? Spores. Right, we have, right, what we have is spores are produced. In asexual reproduction, spores are produced. Those spores are subjected to germination process. Egg grow vela. The primary structure, mycelium, is going to be created. Right. In mycelium, right? In mycelium, it is producing the mushroom. When it comes to sexual reproduction, mycelium, that mycelium level, in the mycelium level, it is forming plus hyphae and minus nitrate. Right. Then what is happening? In that case, only we have the fusion of cytoplasm. Cytoplasm, right? So cytoplasm, we have a fusion of cytoplasm, right? After that, then we have the fusion of the nuclei, right? Nucleus එකනේ අපි දෙන්නේ මේක ඇතුලේ, right? ඕක දෙකට බෙදෙනවා. cytoplasm එක දෙකට බෙදෙනවා, right? අන්න හැදෙන සයිගෝට් එක, right? Then meiosis stage. Then it is coming to the level of spore producing structures, right? From that structure, spores are produced and germination process is happening. Mycelium is happening. Right. So this is the difference between asexual reproduction and the sexual reproduction of fungi. Well, let's say that we are doing, we are handling some industry related to fungi. We'll say, let's say, we are having mushroom industry, right? Right. Then we have to supply the most favorable conditions for the growth of the mycelium, for the growth of the particular fungi, because we need to promote growing that. If not, right, let's say that, okay, we are not talking about some economically benefited fungi. Instead, we have the problem of about something like, we'll say, some problematic situation. We have fungal infection, maybe on the skin, maybe somewhere, right? So fungal infection. In that case also, we need to know the conditions, required conditions. Why? When we need to supply some favorable conditions, yeah, we should know. And also, if we need to stop the growth of this fungi, still we need to know the conditions, because by removing those factors only, we can stop the growth of this fungi. Right. Then, for every single fungi, there is some optimum temperature. There is some optimum temperature. You can වැඩි නැති temperature. Moisture. Basically, humidity. Even mushroom is happy mushroom fair growth එකක් නම් කරන්නේ business එකක් නම් කරන්නේ, right? එතකොට ඒක තියලා තියෙන එකේ අපිට තියෙන moisture යාවල තියෙන moisture content එකක් තියෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ growth medium එක. දැන් mushroom ගත්තොත් මේක අපි හදන්නේ මේ ලී කුඩු වල හදන්නේ. හරිද? ඒතකොට හැම ලී කුඩු වර්ගයක් මේකට හරියන්නේ නැහැ. ලී කුඩු ගත්තට පස්සේ ඒකේ growth එකට ඕන කරන nutrients ටික තියෙන ලී කුඩු වර්ගයක් වෙනවා. හැමකම හරියන්නේ නැහැ. Right. A medium එකේ moisture එක. And A medium එකේ moisture විතරක් නෙමෙයි, A environment එකේ එළියේ තියෙන moisture එක. ඒ කියන්නේ humidity. Right. All the way out there. And also the pH requirements. What is the pH requirement? Right. For the optimum growth of fungi, there has to be some pH value, optimum pH value, right? A pH value kita may in a fungus like a maximum rate taking growing, right? And A pH value, right? So those are the factors that we need to control in growing these fungi. Okay, grow කරන්නයි අනිත් පැත්තෙන් මේවා destroy කරන්න. මේක infection එකක් නම් ඒක destroy කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒ වෙනත මේක අපි විකුණන්න හදන product එකක් නම් ඒකේ growth එක වැඩි කරන්න. ඔය දෙකටම අපිට අවශ්‍ය conditions equal conditions supply කරනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට grow කරන්න ඕනේ මේවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් තියෙන conditions remove කරනවා. Right. Right. Well, what kind of a disease is this? Right. Superficial mycosis. Skin එකේ මතු පිටින් හැදෙන එකක්. Well, when it comes to this situation, this is a very common fungal infection. Well, this is going to be like definitely on the outermost layer of the body. Outermost layer. The outermost layer is liver passe, again skin එකේ, right? Skin, hair, nails, right? Skin අපේ ඇඟේ ගත්තට පස්සේ outermost layer කියන්නේ ඕක. Skin එක වෙන්න පුළුවන්, hair වෙන්න පුළුවන්, nails වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අන්න ඒ වගේ මතු පිටින් හැදෙන එක තමයි ඔය කියන fungal infection එක. Right? So, well, symptoms wise, obviously, we can see patches on the skin. Right. We can see patches on the skin. Yeah, right? I had a bit patches here. ඊට අමතරව අපිට දැනෙන feeling එකක් තියෙනවා. කසනවා. Right? ඊට පස්සේ කසනවා. Right. දැන් කැසුවම මොකද වෙන්නේ? Right? කැසුවම වෙන්නේ මොකද skin එකේ? Right. උඩලේ එක damage වෙනවා. උඩලේ එක damage වුණාට පස්සේ දැන් මේක fungal infection එකකින් හිතා මේ දැන් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ the fungi is basically taking the nutrients from the skin. There is the equilibrium there. Right? Right. So then what is happening? Like fungi is living on the skin. Right. Then why do we get that feeling? Hasana feeling in A. When the fungi is living on the skin, it is having its own metabolism. Right. As a result of that metabolic activities, it is producing certain excretory products. Excretory products are there. Those excretory products are going to be on the skin. Right. Since that is not that friendly to our skin, what is happening? We get that itching feeling. Right. Then what is happening? Right. Guess what I must say? Skin outer layer damage. Right. තවදුරටත් damage වෙනවා. කියන්නේ අපිට ඇහැට පේන්නේ නැති ගන්නට මේ තුවාල වෙනවා. Right? අපි ගන්න අර කැසුවර පස්සේ හරි අපි අර satisfying feeling එකනේ හරි පසනවා අමාරුයි කැසුවා. Right? හරි. ඒක satisfying feeling එක. හැබැයි අර තියාගෙන ඒකට skin එකේ උඩලේ අපිට ඇහැට නොපෙනුනාට තුවාල වෙනවා. Now it is exposed to the rest of the environment. So, lot of infections can happen. It's a fungal infection already. අනිවාර්යෙන් කසනවා. හැබැයි අපි කසන්න හොඳ නැහැ. At least body pollen මොනවද දාලා හරි ඒ කසන එක අපිට ගන්න බෑ. මොකද මේක අපි fungus එක control කරගන්න. Right? That is there. Well, මේක diagnose කරගන්නේ කොහොමද? Obviously, අපිට මේක ඇහැට පේන දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. ඇහැට පේන්නේ අර පැච් එකක් ආවට පස්සේ ඇහැට පේන්නේ වෙනම දෙයක්. හැබැයි මේක proper study එකක් කරන්න මේ ඇහැට පේන ප්‍රමාණය මදි. Obviously, we have to go for a microscopic examination. That is a must. Then we have to go for a fungal culture. Fungal culture. Right? Then we have to, for us to go for a fungal culture, then we have to take samples from the infected area of the skin and let it grow in under favorable conditions. Then it will be growing. Since it is growing, then of course we can go for microscopic examination regarding this. Right. Then at the first place we find out this is a singular cell bond or multi-cell bond. Right. We talked about together they exist in a singular cell and they exist in the other case they exist in like multicellular version. So we identify that. Accordingly, then we can go for antifungal medications. Right? antifungal medications. Right. When it comes to antifungal medications, like, in agriculture, right? Condis is used. Condis for acid permanganate. And the but day-to-day telling, general uses. Right. And also, iodine, right? Iodine also can be used. Right. Those are the antifungal medicines there's a lot. Okay. Cutaneous mycosis. Right. Well, right. They are superficial fungal infections. This is on skin, hair, nails. Right. So let's see how it is happening. The common examples, right? If I go ahead with common examples, at least food. අර මේ අපි අර මේ socks දැම්මට පස්සේ අර දිගටම අදාගෙන හිටියට පස්සේ අර ඇඟිලි අතර එන්නේ right ඒ fungal infection එක එන්නේ ওই situation එක right ඒතකොට එතෙන්දී දැන් අපි ගත්තට පස්සේ දැන් අත්මේ expose වෙන temperature එක නෙමෙයි අපි shoes දැම්මට පස්සේ socks දැම්මට පස්සේ එතන temperature high නේද ප්‍රශ්නේ වැඩි. ඒතකොට ඒ තියෙන favorable conditions ගත්තා. එතන තියෙන humidity right එතන කකුලට එතන තියෙන humidity ඒ කියන්නේ moisture එක. ඊට පස්සේ එතන තියෙන temperature එක. ඒ ටික ගත්තට පස්සේ වෙනස්. Right? Okay. So in that case, we get that situation. We get that situation. So that is happening. Well, from outside, what do you see? The place is between the fingers. It looks red. Right? It was said. Kasanama. Right? Patches in our. Right? All of these situations අපිට symptoms විදිහට දකින්න පුළුවන්. Well, so in that case, other than like antifungal medicines, what are the things that we can do? Why do those fungi develop when we wear socks and shoes? Right. කකුලට දාඩි දානවනේ. Right? ඒ කියන්නේ ඇයි අනිත් ඇඟවලට දාඩි දාන්නේ නැහැ කියලා මේ දාඩි දානවා. හැබැයි ඒවා එක්ස්පෝස් විතරයි. ගෝල්ඩ් දාඩි වම අන්න වාරි ටික වාෂ් කරලා යනවා. අත් වලට දාඩි දෙන්න අන්න වාෂ් කරලා යනවා. හැබැයි socks ඇතුලේ තියෙන කකුලට දාඩි දෙන්නත් පස්සේ ඒක වාෂ් කරලා යන්නේ නෑනේ. Right. අන්න එතන moisture වැඩි. Right. එතන moisture වැඩි. Right. එතන moisture වැඩි නිසා අන්නේ ඒ moisture use කරලා තමයි එතන තියෙන water vapor use කරලා තමයි right මේ fungus එක develop වෙන්නේ. Fine. So what are the actions that we can take? Antifungal medicines අපිට ගන්න පුළුවන් කියන cream අපිට ගන්න hydrocortisone වගේ cream ගන්න පුළුවන්. Right? එහෙම නැත්නම් අපිට එතන තියෙන moisture අයින් කරන්න socks දාන්න powder එකක් use කරන්න පුළුවන්. Right. ඒතර powder වලට ගත්ත පස්සේ අර ඒතර දාඩි දාන එක ඒක absorb වෙනවා. Right. අන්න ඒක අපිට minimize කරන්න moisture minimize කරන්න පුළුවන්. Or else we can use a cream like hydrocortisone. Right. Well, we can manage with antifungal medications, but proper hygiene has to be there. Proper hygiene has to be there. That is very important, right? Even if we take antifungal medicines, right? If we don't pay our attention on personal hygiene and rest of the things like so, it's difficult to control. Right. Patches අපිට මේ skin එකේ තියෙන patches, right? මෙන්න මේ විදිහට අපිට ලැබෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක control කරේ නැත්නම් patch එක දිගට දිගට යනවා. Right? දැන් අපි ගත්තොත් එහෙම අර කකුලේ ඇඟිලි අතර එන එකක් ගත්තා ඊපස්සේ අපි ඒක control කරගත්තා නැත්නම් ඊගාව ඇඟිල්ලටත් ඕක යනවා. ඊගාව එකටත් යනවා. ඊපස්සේ යාර පැත්තෙන් හැම යනවා. නේද? Right. ඒක දිගට develop වෙනවා. Speaking of that situation in detail, right? So this is what we talked about already. Just have an idea. Right. This is how we see that. ඊට පස්සේ skin එකේ ওই කෑල්ල ගැලවිලා යනවා. Right? ඔය තියෙන patch එක right. ඒක ඊට පස්සේ අර it is going to peel off. ඔය කෑල්ල ගැලවිලා යනවා. Right? ඊට පස්සේ inner layer එක expose වෙනවා fungus එකට. Plus මේ තියෙන එකත් ඔය surface area එක දිගේ ඔහොම පැතිරෙනවා. Right? Spread වෙනවා. එතකොට මේක moist environment එක නිසා තමයි මේක develop වෙන්නේ. If we control that moist environment, we can control it. මේක දැන් හැදෙන්නේ අර fingers අතර උනාට මේක අපි control කරගත්තේ නැත්නම් සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම මුළු කකුල පුරාම පැතිරෙන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද ඒ මුළු area එකට අපිට අර ඉතින් socks වලට වැහිලා තියෙන මුළු area එකම ගත්තට පස්සේ ඒ එකම moisture content එක develop වෙනවා. Right? Like this. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ තියෙන්නේ දැන් unattended අවස්ථාවක් patient කෙනෙක්ගේ. ඒ කියන්නේ මේක තව develop වෙන්න ඔයිට මෙහා තැනකදී උග නතර කරගන්න පුළුවන්. Right? එක්කෝ socks වෙනස් කරන්න ඕනේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් දාඩිය දාන්න එක අඩු කරගන්න powder use කරන්න ඕනේ. antifungal cream එකක් use කරන්න ඕනේ. Right? ඒ වගේ actions වලට නොයා unattended තිබ්බ situation එකක් තමයි මේ තියෙන්නේ. Right? ඒක develop වෙලා යන්නේ. The previous one that you were talking about, that is like solely on the skin, right? Skin patches are coming, right? දැන් ওই වගේ එකක් අපි ඔළුවේ හැදුනොත් මොකද වෙන්නේ? right? ඊට පස්සේ ඔළුවේ අර විදිහම ස්කින් එක, right? ඔළුවේ විදිහේ ස්කින් එකත් ඔය විදිහට යන්න පුළුවන්. නේද? right? ස්කින් එක ඩැමේජ් වෙලා යනවා. ඊට පස්සේ එතනින් hair fall අපේ කොණ්ඩේ යන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. right? අන්න එතන වෙනම අර hair loss එකට අදාළ පැච් එකක් වෙනම පේන්න තියෙනවා. right? ඕක දැකලා ඇති මේ like human like ඕක අපිටත් ඕක තියෙනවා. plus common example එකක් දැකලා ඇති මේ පල්ලොන්ගේ. අර ඊට පස්සේ දැකලා ඇති අර කළු තෙල් එහෙම දාන්නේ. right? ඒක තියෙනවා. නැද්ද? පල්ලොන්ගේ අර දැන් අර දැකලා ඇති මේ උඩ බූල් තියෙන අය ඉන්නවා. ඊට පස්සේ බූල් තැනින් ගියපු අය ඉන්නේ. right? ඒකට එක එක නම් කියනවා. අර කටුව කාලා කියලා කියනවා. ඒක නම් කියනවා. ඉන්න සාමාන්‍ය ව්‍යවහාරය. හරිද? එහෙනම් හැම ගියපු තැන් තියෙනවා. right? ඊට පස්සේ ඒකට අර කළු තෙල් දානවා. එන්ජින් ඔයිල් දානවා. right? එතකොට මෙන්න මොකද වෙන්නේ? කළු තෙල් හරි එන්ජින් ඔයිල් හරි ඊට පස්සේ ස්කින් එක වැහිලා ඉතන වැහුණාට පස්සේ අර ෆංගල් growth එක නතර වෙනවා. unfavorable conditions. moisture නැහැ. right? වතුර නැතුනම තමයි මේක වෙන්නේ. right? okay. yes. So basically, that of course, like we have to go for clinical investigations and identify what is exactly happening there. So it is not just the skin; it is related to the hair fall also, right? We can see such patches there. In that case, we have to go for a clinical examination of and the hair samples as well. And again, finally, we will end up with antifungal medication. Well, in such cases, you know, the pH value that we got hair fall related now, again, we got those over the protein, but you know, they over in it was a Facebook in Bala, Manahari, Gandoinic, hold the angle up the if it is a fungal infection, we have to go for particular treatments. In that case, pH value. I mean, moisture the moisture control, then I will shoes them marapasse, socks them marapasse, any capital, the Arida, any kind of equity beer and the coding beer and Pulang water. Right? Only many of came around the back of the root powder that vary. Right? Practically current plug and either moisture control can practical current plug and naming. Right? In that case, what are we controlling? We control the pH value. We control the pH value. Right. How do we control the pH value? අපිට මේ ඔළුවට pH meter එකක් දාලා දැන් තියෙන current pH value එක මොකක්ද කියලා ඒක කරන්න බෑ. ඊට පස්සේ Google කරලා අපිට මොකක්ද pH value එක අපි මේකද කියලා බලලා ඒ pH value එක provide කරන්න බෑ. ඒතර අපිට තියෙන්නේ එතෙන්ට අපිට තියෙන limited access. Right. So the best way to control the pH value, we have to change the shampoo. I mean, the Dengan shampoo එක මොකක්ද? ඒක අපි කඩින් ගත්ත එකක්. right? ඒ කියන්නේ සුපර් මාකට් එකේ ගත්ත එක. ඒකේ තියෙන standard pH එකක් වෙනවා තියෙනවා. Since that pH range is unfavorable for our situation, we have to find a better one. In that case, we have to go for another shampoo which is clinically available. Supermarket එකේදී එකක් නෙමෙයි, medically available, clinically available shampoo එකකට අපිට මාරු වෙන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. right? तर pH value වෙනස් කරන්න වෙනවා. සමහර වෙලාවට pH value අඩු, සමහර වෙලාවට pH value වැඩි. දැන් අතර පස්සේ අහලා ඇති සමහර වෙලාවට මේ pH value දැන් අර ඔය ඔළුවේ හැදෙන එක જાති වලට මේ traditionally අර දෙහි ලෙල්ලක් ගන්නවා. right? අන්න එතකොට ඒකින් control කරන එක pH value මේ අඩු pH value එකක් දුන්නාට පස්සේ හරි. දැන් TV advertisements වල යන shampoo වල ගත්තට පස්සේ pH value මට මතක නෑ advertisements වල කොහොමද යන්නේ ඒවා කියලා. pH value 7 වලින් පල්ලෙහාට 7 වලින් උඩද TV එක කියන්නේ. advertisements බලන්නේ 5 point ගණන් ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන්නේ. right? එතකොට මේ low pH values වලින් මේ fungal growth එක control කරගන්න අපිට ලොකු අවස්ථාවක් ඉඩකඩක් තියෙනවා. right? ඒක මදි වුණාට පස්සේ අර අපි දෙහිලෙල්ලක් ගාලා හරි මේක කරලා ඒක control කරන්න පුළුවන්. right? දැන් ඔය history කියලා දැන් ඉන්නේ එහෙම තමයි. එතකොට එතන අපි pH value වෙනස් කරලා තමයි ඒ ටික කරන්නේ. This is the situation. right? එතකොට ඔය දැන් infected area එක තමයි මේ මැද තියෙන්නේ මේ සුදු පාට history ඇදලා තියෙන්නේ. right? එතකොට පොතේ පොණ්ඩේ යනවා. right? ඊට පස්සේ එතන මේ පොණ්ඩේ නැතුව තමයි ඉලර තියෙන්නේ. right? එතකොට මෙතෙන්ට තමයි අපි ඔය අපිට ඔය ඔළුවට ට්‍රීට්මන්ට් කරන්නේ අපිට ඒක තරක් සිලෙක්ට් කරලා කරන්න බෑ. එතකොට දෙහිරෙල්ලක් ගන්නවා නම් ඔය එකක් ඔය වගේ areas වලට ගන්න පුළුවන්. shampoo කරද්දී right we can handle the entire head. right? Otherwise, if we let it grow like this, definitely the hair in this entire region or cluster එකම hair යනවා. right? ඒක ඔය පොන්නේ නෑ. right? well, another situation. when it comes to අපි දැන් අර කකුලේ ඇඟිලි වලට හැදෙන එකෙන් කතා කරා. right? another situation. you know, in this case, this is about like toenail. What happens is the nail becomes thick and it becomes yellow. right? It becomes thick and it becomes yellow. And white spots can be seen. right? So in appearance, I think you can picture that situation. right? You might have seen such situations. right? අර ෆියම් පොත් එක ගන්න කම් වැඩි වෙලා ඒකේ පොත කපාට වෙලා ඒකේ patches ඇවිල්ලා එහෙම situation ඕනතරම් දැකලා ඇති. right? That is because of a fungus. well, ඒ යාගේ thickness එක වැඩි වෙන්නේ ඒ fungus එක. එතන දිනක මේ අර එමෙන්න විත්තිවල fungus හැදෙන්නේ. right? paint එකට උඩින් ඝන කමට හැදෙනවා fungus. right? ඒ thickness එකෙන් මේ ඝනකම එන්නේ ඒ හැදෙන fungus එකෙන්. right? එතන ටිකක් ඒ වගේ තමයි ඔය. right? අර බලන්න ඝනකම වැඩිලා තියෙන දැන් මේ තියෙන මෙතන දැන් ඔය ස්මූත් කරලා තියෙනවා. right? අතන අර දැන් අර paint එක මෙහාට ඉදිමිලා. right? ඔය වගේ දැන් නියපොත්තලක් වෙන්නේ ඔකම තමයි. නියපොත්තලක් වෙන්නේ ඔකම තමයි. නියපොත්ත ඝනකම මේ ඔය තියෙන ඝනකමකට වැඩි ඝනකමකට උඩින් ඒ කියන්නේ නියපොත්ත ලොකු වෙනවා නෙමෙයි. ඒ උඩ fungus එක හැදෙනවා. Then the thickness of the nail increases. It looks ugly, it becomes yellow, and patches are there. A lot of things. Right. Then, so this is the most common nail fungus. Well, so this is basically for toenails, and fingernails also could be. right? Like this. This is the situation that I was referring to, right? It is growing. You can see the nails are so thick. නිකන් තියෙන ඝනකම නෙමෙයි මේ පොතේට හුඟ ඝනකම අර කොන්ක්‍රීට් වගේ නේද? උඩින් මැටි ගාලා වගේ, right? ඝනකමයි. And what is this yellow also, right? ඒක nail එක යන්නේ. ඒක මේක control කරගන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද දැන් ඔය nail එක ගත්තට පස්සේ දැන් ඉතින් අලුතෙන් හැදෙන දැන් අපි දැන් nail එකේ අලුතෙන් හැදෙන කෑල්ලේ fungus එක නැහැ. හැබැයි ඒ කැල්ල හැදිලා එළියට ආවට පස්සේ තමයි ඔක වෙන්නේ. ඇතුලෙන් නෑ. අපි මේක මෙතනින් කන්ට්‍රෝල් කරගත්තොත් right නියපොත්ත බේර ගන්න පුළුවන්. Subcutaneous mycosis. Right. Now, when it comes to situations where agricultural areas are there, farmers, right? Then farmers look after the vegetables, southern areas are growing well mudded, primarily the then උඹුරේ වැඩ කරන්නේ නෑනේ බූස් දාගෙන නේද? පෙයා ෆුඩ් වැඩ කරන්නේ. right? ඊට පස්සේ දැන් උඹුරේ කියන්නේ දැන් වතුරක් තියෙන තැන. පිටන් දවුම දැන් ගොයන් නෙමෙයි. බෝන්චි අලලුණු මොකක් හරි ඒ වගේ වගාවක් ගත්තා. right? ඒකට බූට්ස් දාගෙන නෙමෙයි මේ ඒ වැඩ ඇග්‍රිකල්චර් වැඩ කරන්නේ. මතකයි එක සැරයක් මේ 2000 election එකකදී 2003-4 වගේ කාලෙක මම හිතන්නේ the prime minister was suddenly promising he came to power, he promised like that he will provide chewing gum and everything to the farmers, right? Boots, chewing gum, okay, everything අර පොෂ් විදියට කුඹුරු කොට අතේ කරගන්න. අන්න එහෙම එතකොට ඒ විදිහට බෝට්ස් දාගෙන කරොත් නම් අන්න එතකොට මේ ඔය කියන මේ සිටුේෂන් එක එන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද this is coming from the soil, right? අපි වැඩ කරන්නේ barefoot නම් නිකම් බිම නම් උදැල්ල අරගෙන වැඩ කරන්නේ, right? ඒතර soil වලින්, right? So then definitely we will go and get those infectious fungi from the soil, right? ඒක දෙන්නම් කිව්වේ මේ දැන් farmers කරන්නේ බුලත් පිටනේ, right? බුලත් කන්නේ. The bullet period away, bullet road, like we are going for a bigger economy in the country. So instead of that, we'll provide chewing gum. Right? ඒක තමයි යාගේ මේ පැතිවරණ වේදිකාවේදී පොරොන්දු වුණේ. Right. කොහොමද සම්දරගේ දිනෝයා? I think it was 2001. Yeah, that was an example. Right. So, yes, basically, so what I want to talk about, so this is coming from, right? Well, this is coming from soil, right? That has to be diagnosed at the first place. And then again, we have to go for clinical diagnostics. After that, this situation can be treated with antifungal agents, right? This is different from this situation. Is totally different from the situation where I was talking about this shoes, wearing socks. That is different, and this is another situation. So, totally two different situations. Like this. This is very common in agricultural areas. ඒගොල්ලෝ barefoot තමයි වැඩ කරන්නේ. අර right? So it's totally exposed. So then from soil, only these are going to be given. Why it is coming from soil to the human feet? We know in soil, the stuff which are present, like the nutrition level, the moisture and everything, so that's different. But when it comes to the human skin, on the skin, it's going to be proper growing medium. On the skin, it's going to be proper growing medium. So then fungi is it's growing independently on the skin, human skin. That is how it is happening. It could be feet or hand, right? So in that, if we talk about certain situations, right? Sclerotrichosis, right? We give a name, that is a name of situation, but we say rose gardener's disease. This is a fungal infection. Well, this is entering to the body through cuts or scrapes on the skin, right? Well, the skin is damaged. So that this is enter. Well, in this situation, we don't get any pain at the beginning. It's a painless situation at the beginning. But with the development of this, like then little by little, we start seeing the patches and all. At the beginning, there's no pain. Symptom wise, there is no pain at the beginning. But sometimes there are cases it is going beyond the skin. We expect, okay, this is to limit on the skin, but there are cases it is going to lungs, bones, joints, and other parts of body. That depends on the immune system, strength of the immune system. It is spreading unnecessarily in different areas of the body. Whenever we have a lower, like basically weak immune system. If our immune system is strong, like uh, it's possible to be tolerated. But when the immune system is weak, then it goes beyond the skin. Because it is because of like this is entering to the body through a kind of threat. Right. Another situation. Well, this is another fungal situation. This is happening because of a pigmented fungi, right? This also, it is coming through the skin, right? Through the skin. Because you see, skin is one which is always getting exposed to the environment. And whatever it is, like fungi is something which is growing on some kind of a surface, right? So then skin is always available as a surface, right? So that is entering through the skin. In this situation, this is growing very slowly, not a very fast growth. It's growing very slowly. Then, of course, in this case, since it is growing very slowly, it's bit challenging when it comes to controlling this situation. Then surgically, we have to go for different type of treatments regarding controlling this fungal growth. Why do I say it's a little bit challenging situation? Because at the beginning, we don't see any symptom. And this fungus is growing very slowly also. Because we know that when it comes to the skin, right, we are not going to have any regular checkups in the microscopic level. හරිද මයික්‍රොස්කෝප් එක කරගෙන බලන ස්කින් එකේ දැන් කොහොමද තත්ත්වය ළඟට සතිය කොහොමද තත්ත්වය ඊගව සතිය කොහොමද ස්කින් එක මොකද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා නෑ. අපි කරන එකම දේ ස්කින් එක ගැන අපි ලෑස්ති වුණාට පස්සේ කණ්ණාඩිය ගාවට ගිහලා මොකද තත්ත්වය කියලා බලන එක විතරයි. right? ඒකෙන් ෆංගස් පේන්නේ නෑ. right? so ඒකින්ද අපිට ඒක මේ වගේ slow growth එකක් තියෙන fungal infection එකකට අපි ගියොත් it's a bit challenging because the observations do not appear very soon. Like this. මේ තියෙන දැන් හොඳටම ඇවිල්ලා. ඒ කියන්නේ oil level එකට එන්න හුඟක් කල් යනවා. right? හැබැයි උතන මේ වෙලාවේ treatments පටන් ගන්න ගත්තට පස්සේ දැන් ඒක මොකක් grow වෙලා ඉවරයි. ඒක මෙතන challenging කියලා. එකපාරට අපිට symptom පේන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් අපි අර කතා කරපු most common example එක අර සපත්තු දෙන්නාම ඇඟිලි කරවදලට එන එක ගන්න පස්සේ ඒක නම් ටක් ගාලා appear වෙනවා. right අපිට ගන්න action එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි මේක හුඟක් කල් යන පොඩ පේන්නේ. එතකොට අපිට ඒක notice වෙන්නේ නැහැ. right? දැන් මේ අර තියෙන මේ දනිස්සක් ප්‍රමාණන් තියෙන ඒකට ඔය ගත්තට පස්සේ දැන් එහෙම අපිට නෝට් වෙනවත් හරි අඩුයි. right? දැන් මූණේ වගේ එකක් ගත්තට මූණ නම් පේන හැටි මම කන්නඩියෙන් බලනවා. right? මූණ පේනවා. හැබැයි දනිස්ස ගත්තට පස්සේ ඉමේජ් එකක් ගත්තට පස්සේ පේනවා ඒ වගේ ඒරියා එක පේනවා හරි අඩුයි. right? Mycetoma is a chronic neglected tropical disease. This is happening by bacteria, by fungi. Again, this is also entering to the body through the skin. Right? Maybe from soil, maybe from plant matter. Both are possible. Well, what exactly is happening in this case? This is that it's developing on the surface, on the skin. And what is happening as a result of that? It is slowly destroying the tissue, right? And bone over years, right? Well, a slow growth. But the particular tissue or the bone will be slowly, it will be destroyed. That is there. Well, in such cases, it is not enough if we use only antifungal cream or something, right? In such cases, definitely we have to effectively go for antibiotics, right? That is important. And antifungal creams actually, if you are going with this, so for a considerable long time, we have to slowly use it. They can control. Like this. Now, this is a very untreated situation. Right? ඔය අන්තිම හරියටම ගියාට පස්සේ ඔය තියෙන සිටුේෂන් එකක් ඔය ඉන්නේ. එහෙම වෙලාවක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මේකට ට්‍රීට් කරන්න කලින් ස්කින් එකේ ඔය තියෙන සොලන් ඒරියා එක surgery කරලා කපලා අයින් කරන්න වෙනවා. Right? Right. This is a situation. This is slowly growing. Right. Systemic mycosis. Now, when it comes to these fungal infections, now we know that uh, we feel like that it's always like skin. No, it's not only skin, right? Sometimes they are infecting the internal organs as well, right? Yeah, they affect the internal organs as well. Skin, even the skin, when we have a skin cut through that it can enter, and this can spread throughout the body. Throughout the body. The most common one, it can enter to the lungs very easily because lungs, right? Okay, when we inhale something, yes, okay, it is going into the lungs. Lungs, the inner surface of the lungs can be infected. That is a very common situation. Well, in that case, the surface situation of like compare the situation on the skin and the surface of the lungs. Okay, on the skin, yes, so yeah, it's dry, but on the lungs, on the inner surface of the lungs, that is not a dry surface, right? That is a wet surface. Since it is a wet surface, then the growth rate of the particular fungi is going to be definitely high, right? Then the controlling methods for such situation is going to be obviously different from the skin infected ones. Right? You see, these are untreated situations. Well, I'll take up one example for this. Histoplasmosis. Histoplasmosis, when it comes to that, well, this fungal infection is coming under the category that you know before. In that case, well, sometimes the symptoms can't be seen at all. Could be. Sometimes there will be mild symptoms. Could be a cousin, ratu වෙන ඒ මුකුත් නෙමෙයි. Very mild situations. පොඩ්ඩක් බිබිලක් වගේ හම්බෙනවා. ඒ වගේ පෙන්නන්න පුළුවන්. Mild symptoms. Then in that case, it's difficult to judge also whether it's fungal infection or mosquito bite or something, right? But mosquito bite, okay, today it will be there, by tomorrow it won't be there, right? හැබැයි මේකේ අර කසන ගති ඒව ටික ලොකුවට අපිට පෙන්වුම් කරන්නේ නැහැ. That problem is there. Well, then in such cases, the problem here is now we get, in such cases, we at the beginning, for a considerable long time, we don't have proper symptoms or we have very little symptoms. But when it comes to very grown situation, an infection, if හොඳටම වෙලා තියෙන අවස්ථාවකදී extreme situation එකකට මේක develop වුණාට පස්සේ Right. In this example, I'm talking about lungs. Right. The fungus lives right here. It is releasing spores with the wind, and when we inhale, right, fungus which is in the soil, it will be going to the lungs. Right. Obviously, the surface of the soil and surface of lungs are totally different. Then, on the surface of lungs, we have a lot of moisture. In it will be proper growing medium to the for those particular fungus. Then that will grow. Blastomycosis. Well, what happens is this also we inhale. This is another situation. This is like serious. It's a serious fungal infection. It is for the lungs, right? It is for the lungs. We inhale not the fungus, but the spores of the fungus. Right? When the fungus is growing somewhere, it is making spores, just like seed-like structures. Then we inhale that. We inhale that. Most of the cases, this is coming from moist soil and also decomposing plant materials. Right? It is coming. Finally, like whatever happens, we inhale it. There is going. Right. And growing. Well, so it's growing in the lungs, and it can spread into the other organs, right? Well, skin is definitely vulnerable and can spread into bones as well, right? Now, in this case, symptoms don't appear very fast. Symptoms appear after, from like 3 weeks to 3 months after the exposure. If you expose to the spores today, from 3 weeks to 3 months time only, we can see some observation as symptoms. Then finally, we have to go for diagnosing, like clinical diagnosis, right? Urine test, a blood cell, like blood test. Then sometimes tissue biopsies. Those are the medical treatments that we have to go to check on this. The infectious level will be such, right? So you must be wondering, okay, if we inhale that, right, if it is going into the lungs, how come the symptoms can be seen on the nose? Spores are going in and they are growing inside the lungs. And when we exhale, the new spores are coming out. They are growing on the surface of the skin. Symptoms happening. Lungs වල ඇතුළේ තියෙන symptoms ඒකේ grow වෙනවා අපිට පේන්නේ. Right? එළි grow වුණොත් අන්න පේනවා. Which is why I say that after infection, after you get exposed to those spores, after like 3 weeks to 3 months time only, we can see this, symptoms, observations. It takes time. Right. Another situation. We call it valley fever. Well, what is happening there is, this is also another example for lung infection, right? So now you see, when it comes to lung infections, more than the bacteria, fungi play a big role, right? That is there. Opportunistic mycosis. Well, in that case, this fungi, particularly that they grow, right? They grow on one surface, right? And if they get a chance to grow on another better surface, which is not treated properly, or which is unable to manage with the immunity, in that case, they grow on the new surface. As an example, let's say, for the lectures where, let's say, you come by bus, right? You're coming here, right? Then, on your way, if you meet someone who is coming to the same lecture by car, then without the bus, you're obviously more than the bus, you're comfortable with the car, right? Then, okay, you get the chance to get into the car and come here, right? Same situation here. The particular fungi is okay, it's capable of growing in with the existing facilities, right? But they get the chance to grow on a better surface, right? Then they go better in the better surface. Opportunistic mycosis is like that. When I say better situation, better in the sense moisture-wise better, pH-wise better, temperature-wise better, right? Obviously, water is needed. Think about, okay, there is a particular fungi which is growing on the skin. Like skin එකේ තියෙන moisture ප්‍රමාණයට වඩා අනිවාර්යෙන් වැඩි ඉන්නේ moisture lungs වල නේද? Right. Then if that particular fungi is getting the chance to move to lungs, then it is taking that opportunity. Just give me a second. Right. So that is the nature of opportunities ones because they always like they show a better growth on a better surface, temperature wise, surface wise, sorry, temperature wise, pH wise, and moisture wise. Which is why I said that more than the skin, we were talking about like we were comparing the surfaces, lungs and the skin. Lungs is providing a better surface. Right. So under that category, it is another example which we get infected by inhaling spores. Right. Well, in this situation, of course, we get symptoms. Symptoms, of course, it's like, there's a wide range of this, these symptoms. Sometimes it appears like a, mild allergic condition, right? When it comes to allergic conditions, what do we take? We take a piriton or something, right? But it won't work here because this is a fungal infection, right? The symptoms vary from mild allergic conditions to life-threatening situations, or such situations are there. But anyway, when it comes to the treatments, obviously first we have to go for clinical diagnostics. Then only we can go for particular antifungal treatments. Right. These are some other examples. Well, yes, these are the other examples, like continuation of the examples. Right. We can go for treatments after doing the diagnostics parts in the lab. In that case, sometimes we can directly detect it by using microscopic analysis. Basically, we can see by using microscope. Sometimes that is not working because it's in the, if we don't have that in the mass scale, we have a small amount. Then we go for culture methods, right? Culture methods. Sorological tests. Or sometimes we go for molecular methods, right? Molecular methods. That means we have to analyze it in the sense like we treat this and we analyze the excretory products of this colony like that. Well, histopathology, that is another technique. Those are the methods which are being practiced in the lab. Well, in that case, we have to consider these factors as well. Collection method. When we collect a sample, we have to make sure that, okay, when we collect it, no contaminations, no any other species grown, right? Transport requirements, processing techniques, And safety considerations, quality control measures play a very important role, right? Otherwise, what happens is after collecting the sample, if we don't transport to the lab under the right conditions, or we won't be able to detect it properly, right? And if it is a culture report, we have to let it process. So processing techniques matter a lot. And safety has to be guaranteed. The person who is handling the experiment, right, should be given proper safety precautions. Quality control, that's anyway important. So when it comes to direct microscopic examination, potassium hydroxide preparation, right? Well, microscopic, basically, we take the sample and we do microscopic investigation. In that case, sometimes we are not in a position to see that even in the microscope. Then we need to stain it. Remember, we were talking about bacteria, gram positive, gram negative bacteria. Like that, we go for staining procedure, right? And then we analyze the microscopic features of the particular fungal growth. These microscopical features will give us an idea about what sort of microbe is growing here. Right. In case if we are not in a position to go straight to microscopic analysis, that means if you can't see, right? If we can't see that through the microscope, then definitely we have to go culture methods, right? Then agar method. Simply, what is exactly happening here? We uh, let it grow in a favorable medium. Then it is growing. Since it is growing, so then we have supplied the particular incubation conditions should be supplied. And then, okay, so then it is growing as a colony. Then we analyze the features of the colony. That is incubation method, basically. Culture method is same thing. Right. After the growing, what do we do? Then we analyze, which we call identification techniques. We analyze. In that case, we analyze the morphological characteristics. For that, sometimes we have to go for biochemical tests, right? Sometimes we have to go for DNA sequence arranging, basically testing. Finally, we go to decide, we are going to decide what sort of antifungal controlling method is going to match for this particular situation. One of those, like we talked about sorological and molecular methods in treating this situation, right? That involves antibody detection, antigen testing, PCR, which you are familiar with, and DNA probes, right? Then we go for interpretation of the criteria by analyzing this, right? This is the sorological molecular methods. Right. Well, so finally, after doing this analysis, finally we are coming to we are coming for new diagnostic tools, right? Basically, so that sometimes the existing diagnostic tools do not serve the purpose. Then we go for new diagnostic tools, and also antifungal agents, right? To control certain fungi, what sort of antifungal agents should be used? And we have to study about the fungal pathogens, because all the fungi are not equally harmful, right? Then those are these situations, these studies lead to research developments with a lot of future perspectives. That is analysis. Yeah. So this is the area that we need to know about microbiology, the fungal infections and their behavior, and how do we control all this. Right. So what are the areas we should have doubts from? Yeah. Any other doubts? But we are right. Yeah. Tarangannya ini tidak dari Oh iya lebih. La vida me o sea, hay caída. Vale de verdad. Ah, ahí va, igual. Thanks. Okay then. See you next week.